Here we go with the big topic. That's it. It is Thursday. It is October 22nd, 2020. Welcome aboard Crushing Iron Podcast 419. Good job. Is that correct? 419. That's it. That's what we do. We appreciate you tuning in. It is a beautiful day. Another beautiful day. It sounds like Groundhog's Day because the last basically 4 weeks in Chattanooga have been nothing but spectacular outside of a few rainy days. But it's beautiful here in Chattanooga, Tennessee. We are recording from our C26 hub just off Main Street in the south side. If you're ever in town, come visit us. If it's your first time tuning in today, we appreciate it. And we know you have a lot of opportunities out there in the podcast universe, not just for triathlon related, but also just podcasts in general. So we appreciate you giving us your time because we know it's valuable. We cover all things triathlon and all things life. We'll occasionally go into more in-depth topics for swim, bike, and run, training philosophies, and more specific. Sometimes we'll do race recaps. We will be doing race previews very soon because they are back. Occasionally we'll have on the guests, but for the most part, 90, 95%, probably 99% of our podcasts are basically just Mike and I sitting back, chatting about our personal experiences, where we are with life, where we are with our own training. Sometimes we'll use our own athletes as an example and kind of dive into things they're going through personally. And then oftentimes we'll also hop into our Facebook group, which you can find by searching Crushing Iron Group. Answer a simple question, we'll let you in. We'll answer questions off there and kind of let that drive the podcast. But that's what we do. We've both been in this sport for a long time, both as coaches and athletes. We're not experts. We're not professionals. We are, for the most part, just like you. We're trying to figure it out constantly, because that is the crazy yet wonderful part of endurance sports, is that there's always something else to figure out. You're always wanting to get better. You're always wanting to go up in distance. You're always wanting to back down and get faster. It's always, I raced well, I had a great time, but I want to do this. I want to get faster. I want to do this. It's a never-ending journey, just like life. And in the middle of that, we have life. We have all the other things that we're responsible to do. We have, we're parents, we're, best friends, we're sons, we're wives, we're everything, you name it. And that's the biggest part of it, is kind of integrating triathlon into life and not life into your obsession that is triathlon, because that's what, frankly, a lot of triathletes do, is we try to fit our life into our sport, into our hobby, and it's something we're supposed to love, and a lot of times those can butt heads, but that's what we do. We don't have any sponsors. We don't have any ads. We have one agenda, and that is to keep you happy and healthy and enjoyable endurance sports life.
I think it's pretty interesting.
Couldn't have said it better, man.
I couldn't agree with you.
Yeah, and I will say, if you're into like really argumentative, counterbalanced podcasts, this is not going to be the one. This is probably one of the more agreeable podcasts you're ever going to listen to. So if you're looking for that, you can probably find somewhere else, but that's pretty much what we do. Yeah.
I was out to dinner with one of our athletes last night, and he said, "Hey, what you been up to?" And I said, feels like mostly triathlon related activities. Ooh. And it's true, I think that's what's kind of interesting about our situation, is that we are in and around it almost all the time. It is kind of our life story. So, it's sort of like we're thinking about it a lot, and, we kind of sit down and decide, well, what are we going to talk about? But we've been talking about it. So it's interesting to see what comes out, because we're always thinking about it. And I know that, like, when I listen to certain podcasts with people that are always immersed in sort of their topic, it's interesting because they're thinking about things on so many different levels. And I sort of think that's how we do it. And because we've been doing this for 8 years, and 4 of them have been podcasts. And basically it's our normal conversation about, I don't know, how to get, it is usually about how to get better. And we're trying to figure out what ways to be, to find the sport more enjoyable and things like that. So we always kind of dive in that territory, and, we hit and we miss, but it's fun to explore. And I think that's the bottom line, is that we love to explore it. And, you asked me earlier if I had a topic, and I really didn't. But one of the things
you gave me that look, and you're like, no, let's just get rolling and see what we come up with.
See what happens. But really, one of the things that's been on my mind lately, and this might sound kind of crazy, but has been, what I want to do more of is laugh.
You don't feel like I'm funny?
No, I think you're hilarious.
It sounds like you're telling me I need to really get...
No, I don't mean on the podcast, but I just in general, I think I heard a stat the other night that was like, when kids like Hayden's age, they typically laugh like 100 times a day. And then as we get to adults, we laugh like 6 times, you know?
And no one even laughs anymore. You're talking about ha ha through
Yeah, it's kind of like,
an emoji.
yeah, that's funny, but I've got other important things to do.
Yeah,
on the
or you
side.
don't even laugh. You just text it because let's be honest. When you type in LOL, you're lying through your teeth because not a single person, most people are not laughing out loud. You're just not. You
It's
just
like
type,
a 20% laugh.
It's not even close.
No, you even think that?
No.
It's sort of like it kind of like, I should laugh at that.
I have, I think, legit laughed out loud via text maybe 3 times in my life.
Really?
And I own it by just simply saying, you got me on that one. I'm actually laughing out loud. Because LOL is nothing. Like
So you bring the double LOL.
No, I just like spell it out. Like, I'm like, hey, I'm legit like laughing out loud. Like, you got me on that one. I don't feel like, oh, that's great. LOL. Usually I'm like, oh, that's funny. Ha. Which is like a good conversation ender. Or even I'll
pleasant.
If I'm like, yeah, this is actually kind of, I'm like, haha, period. Or you throw in an exclamation point. But you're right. Most people don't laugh anymore because they just throw in, because so much of what we do is like via text message or email or some kind of messaging service. But you're so very right. Like in terms of like increasing your happiness and laughter, like that's a huge thing with Hayden. He goes to school Monday through Friday. And then when he gets home, like recently he's been kind of like revolting against his nap. And so when he gets home from school, he'll sometimes be a little bit crankier because he's been at school all day and he's like trying to let loose. And it's without a shadow of a doubt. Like if we like get on the couch and wrestle and he's always like, tickle me and let's play around. And I do that and he just starts laughing like hysterically for a minute. After that, he is a completely different kid.
Yeah.
Like or even if he's like trying to get real grumpy with me or kind of get an attitude, which is basically what only 4-year-olds do, is sometimes I'll just chase him around and then finally get him on the couch and just try and tickle. And like, you can actually, I think you can laugh yourself out of being like in a really, really bad mood. And
for sure you can.
And I think that's one of the more important pieces that I think we don't, I guess, usually cover it, but with endurance sports and it being such an isolating sport and it being such a thing that you can get lonely doing, and especially this year when you're like even more removed from doing things with groups or your usual training buddies or going to your master swim group or going to the indoor cycling studio or, meeting up for a group track workout or your run group, like those have been so few and like far and in between, people aren't getting hugs. People aren't those little things like hugging, laughter, being around people like that legit physical interaction that you get that really fills your cup. I think that's been the hardest part of this year. And I have been, take it or leave it for what it is. Like I have been very resistant to give up hugs. I don't feel like I can do it and like actually live a life that's not going to like suck the life out of me. And, you can, I guess, be judgmental about that or not, but like when life is difficult and life is hard, and this has been for a lot of people a very, 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 very hard year. I mean, outside of, and we talked about this a little bit yesterday, outside of the obvious, COVID pandemic era that we are in that has caused so much upheaval and changes and isolation and quarantines, and you can't do this and you can't look at people and you wear masks and you can't see people's, faces and are they smiling, are they not smiling? And even outside of that, like totally on a different side, like so many athletes I know have had just absolutely amazingly difficult years, with like one bad thing happening after another and one thing. And you just wonder like, all right, so all the things that are supposed to help you get through tough times, going out with the people you love, getting hugs, sharing laughter, like, being in this room, be like, oh yeah, I can't do that. Like, it's like all like the natural medicine that we have, that we've always had for hundreds and thousands of years, which is connection and community. Because now it's all about, well, are you depressed? Let's just take some medicine. Let's just do this and that. It's like you crave that connection. We get that with camps, and that's why, what we've done our best to be responsible and to be safe and still have, camps this year in the best way that we can, because people need it. People need to feel like they're around like-minded individuals who care and who have the same thoughts and feelings. That was what, Molly Morgan, who she even talked about a little bit on our Zoom call yesterday when she went to Arizona 7.3, was just like, it was just nice to be around other people who are feeling the same and like driven the same way. And oftentimes triathletes, we feel like we're very special, so no one understands what we're going through. We are this very special breed. We're doing this, but at the same point, like same time, like we're kind of right, in a way, because it's like, it is a very interesting sport. It's never ending. There's always something to figure out. And you're on this journey where most people either they don't understand it, or frankly, most people, they just don't care because they're not interested in it. And you need more connection. You need more people. You need to be more involved. You need to have more chats. And I've been very thankful, if not, I've never been more thankful this year than the fact that we do this podcast, in that we have people that we can talk to each other, and we feel like we're talking with and around other people as we record our podcast.
Yeah. And we'll be around each other a lot, and, a lot of times not talk much, but then it's almost like we just kind of go, the waterfall just flows out in these podcasts or something like that. And now I speak for myself, and I'm going to speak for like a lot of people that I know, but I feel like we all are really taking ourselves seriously more and more. It's like, and that can translate into, I can think back to when I was, and I'm back in training for Ironman, but obviously it's a whole different story. But when you think back to your early days, or a lot of times when you train for Ironman, and I would get in this sort of state of mind, like it's so serious. Like I'm training to be dropped in the middle of a jungle to rescue a prisoner or something like that. You know what I mean? Like, it's like the level of intensity that we bring to it sometimes, and like the perfectionism and whatever. And I think there's something great about that. It's like, methodology and taking the right steps and following a game plan and staying consistent. That's all important. But like, and I'm not talking about just triathletes. I just think everyone has like a different level of seriousness. And I think that you hit on it kind of, was because a lot of times we're just texting or communicating by phone or email or stuff like that. And the nuances are completely ripped out of that. And you can almost hear the gears clanking when people are writing whatever they're writing. And it's sort of like, oh, I know what they're doing. They may not be doing anything, but like, we get into these text conversations, and somebody might just be over there laughing, and we read what they wrote, and it seems serious, and it hits us in a weird time because of where we're at, and you can't really get. So, while I think Zoom calls and things like that are way better on some level, it's just like not being around people, and the fact that we're with everything that's been going on, it's just like we've made life so serious. And I think that when you get into that sort of loop, that can really kind of affect your training. It makes, every little pitfall or fail like even more intense in you. And there's got to be a way to lighten that whole thing up, because I think if the lighter you are, metaphorically, probably the faster you go, and instead of carrying so much baggage along with everything, and it's unnecessary baggage. That's the way I look at it. It's like we try to, the weight of the world sort of like folds into our own lives, and you got to let that go, because there's really not a whole lot you can do about a lot of things that we got going on right now.
You said something there that really kind of hit home for me, and I guess kind of pairing it up with what you were talking about at the beginning of the podcast was, you talk about laughter, but I think it's also more about, or also as like just having fun, with it. And you said something about how I think triathletes are innately, or at least they feel like, a lot of them, that we are more intense creatures, and we're very intense about our training, and we're very intense to adhering to that in a perfect way. And then when things don't go right, it's like things are, it's bad, we can't control it, therefore it's bad, and things aren't going to go as well. And when you said the word intense, I immediately went back to something I was kind of talking about in our Zoom call yesterday, which was just intensity and the added intensity. And I think we all know this as athletes, that added intensity means added stress, right? So if you go out and I say, hey, Mike, I want you to do an hour and a half, 2 hour ride and just go out and just chill and enjoy the day. It's gonna create stress, but it's gonna be a more balanced and even stress, and you're gonna get done feeling, I could have gone for like another hour. I feel really, really good after this. Mm-hmm. It was fun. It was uplifting. You feel energized when you get done. Then there's also, on the flip side, the necessary stress, of intensity, which is, this is going to be like, I think we all do this. We have a workout and we're like, I'm kind of looking forward to it because it's gonna be a challenge. I'm also not looking forward to it because it's gonna be hard, right? I know it's gonna be intense. It's going to demand more of me. than I'm used to, because you shouldn't be doing very intense, very hard sessions every single day. You should spread them out. It should be mostly an 80-85% easy stuff, and then sprinkle in some intensity when it's appropriate. But you get that feeling of, you kind of tense up a little bit. You have these expectations of how it's going to go, because it immediately becomes to you more important than all the other workouts that you do. And so for athletes who are and again, most triathletes are like this, when you become increasingly intense about everything that you do and all of your expectations surrounding it, whether it's how much training you're doing, how perfectly you're executing your workouts, how much working out you're doing, the volume you're doing, comparing it to other people, formulating your race plan, 9 months out, and how you're going to do things, and creating 7 million spreadsheets, like the intensity of that is actually creating more stress, because it's something that tenses you up. It's something that you think about. It's something that raises the level of your expectations. And it is something that you, I think actually is a huge negative. And I think you can confuse, or we can say, oh, I'm not really intense. I'm just, I'm very focused. And I think focus and intense are two very things. Like intensity to me, and it being intense, like requires energy. Focus, yes, requires energy, but it's more about being dialed into a specific goal, and also understanding and realizing that there is also this world and life that we are a part of that revolves much more around our life than triathlon does, or should. And you see that so many times with athletes, and you've seen it a lot this year, when athletes kind of butt heads with life, and they kind of refuse to let just the reality that they're going through with, that they're basically just driving, they're treating themselves like a nail and they're the hammer, right? It's like, they're like, I'm going to do this no matter what, because I'm intense. I can make a green week. I can be perfect in training peaks. I can still get it done. All the while you just whittled yourself down from 8 or 9 hours of sleep to 3 or 4, but I've got to get it done, because I've got to be intense, because I've got to be, I've got to get it all done. That is hurtful, right? And so when you take that and you flip it to an athlete who's like, I'm doing this to have fun. Like, yes, I have expectations for myself, but my expectations are to enjoy what I'm doing, to stay healthy, to try to be happy with this, and then also understand that progress comes from being engaged in a process that occurs over a long period of time. And that kind of dialed in focus and reality also relieves the amount of stress and expectations you can have in the short term, because so many athletes get themselves in trouble by having these very, very, very short-term expectations. Like the expectation and the intensity and the stress they put on. I just thought this workout was going to go this way, and I'm so devastated that it didn't. Like, okay, first of all, it's a workout. We should never use the word devastated but athletes do this. I've seen it in training peaks, and I have to call them out. I'm like, first off, like you said, like you're not being dropped in the middle of a jungle, to rescue some hostage or something. Which to be fair, those guys are trained for that. They're probably like, this isn't really stressful. I'm just kind of do this because it's my job. And then you have a triathlete. It's like, I've got to perfectly adhere to the exact plan, and even if it comes at my own misery, even if it comes at my own lack of sleep, or it's going to raise my stress level, or it's going to make my day even more difficult, I'm going to get it done. And athletes do this so many times. Like they sacrifice going back to laughter and how it can affect your day, and the positivity that we should have each and every day, at least with connecting with people and being a part of a community and doing things that we generally love to do. I am always amazed at, and this isn't true of the majority of athletes that we work with, but sometimes it will be of a newer athlete, and I'm like, dude, you need to lighten up and have some fun. Like, this is supposed to be something that you love. Like, you don't get into a relationship where the first day you're like, this is terrible. I'm way too stressed out. I have these major expectations, but you know what? I'm going to stick with it, and we're going to get married in 8 months. Like, no, you just don't do that. But that's how people treat triathlon. And because you see other people who are intense, and everything you do, it is always kind of funny that you see more age group athletes acting like they're professionals than you see professionals. Yeah. Most professionals act like they're age group athletes. When they're not very serious about their training, they kind of go out and they have fun. They put a lot of hours in. They do it on different bikes. They do it on different trails. They do it in different areas, do it with different people. And then lo and behold, they're actually one of the fastest people on the planet. And then age group triathletes, we want to dress the part. We want to look the part. We want to act the part. And we're like, wait a minute, this is a hobby. This is not, this isn't really what we, I like to compare it to the really, really hardcore sports fan who you never see in anything else but a logoed or affiliated piece of apparel. It is always I'll just use this as an example. It's always like an Alabama hat, Alabama jacket, a 2016 national championship shirt that looks pretty grungy, probably some Alabama sweatpants, and then you hop in your truck and it's got 17 Alabama flags on it, probably a Calvin sticker on the back too, peeing in some corner. That's generally what you see when you say Alabama fans. And it's like, but it's like that every day. It's like there is no other part of their identity than I'm an Alabama fan. And my entire life revolves around being an Alabama fan. And a lot of triathletes kind of veer towards that direction where it is not triathlon fits into my life, is that life is triathlon, to me. And while it should be a very important piece, it should be a healthy and important piece. It should be something that gives you things like, going back to the sports example, it shouldn't be. And I think you found this out for yourself sometimes, like when you get really, really into, as a Tennessee sports fan, I don't really have the luxury of having to deal with this a lot, but it's like you get it way into like Wisconsin football and Wisconsin basketball. And they, especially like a couple of years ago, when they would have like a bad game, you'd be like down, like you'd be bumming out. And so you think about, okay, I have no actual, like I'm not part of the team. I'm not on the field. I'm really not affected any way greatly by what's actually going on, but I feel so emotionally invested that I'm just like depressed. And I'm just down. And I think triathletes do that a lot with our relationship with who we are and considering ourselves a triathlete and for just forgetting the fact that like this is supposed to be fun. This is supposed to add positive things to our life and not take away from it.
Yeah. I mean, you shouldn't have to go see a therapist before every workout or after. You know what I mean? It's like sometimes it can be so intense. And I love that you brought up my Badger addiction. And because I think I've been pretty honest about it from the get-go well, at least some point I recognized that it was sort of an issue because I'm like, like the Alabama fan, I was kind of like, it was my drug, in a way. And I don't know why I took it so personally or got so deep into it. And I just think a lot of us have been through that. I'm sure you've been through it back in the day with Tennessee a little bit here and there or whatever. But I don't think it's bad. I guess the whole point is I've been trying to balance that out with everything else out. And I think that some of us get on a pendulum of what's next or what's going to like really flip our switch and get us motivated and kind of be like, in my situation, that was more of an escape. It was like especially during basketball season, because they play 2 or 3 times a week. It's sort of like, I got something to do tonight that's going to kind of get me excited. And it's sort of nice, but to let it affect me afterwards is not a problem, or it is a problem. So it's like, I was thinking about, last night I was, like I said, I was out with Tommy and we had lunch or dinner, and he asked me about riding this weekend, and I said, I'm just not there. I'm trying to come back on all these levels, and the swim and the run are really exciting me right now. It's kind of got me interested, and I feel like if I try to stretch that too thin, it's going to be weird right now. So I'm kind of laying off. I may get on and do some spinning around my mountain bike or whatever we got here, but for the most part, I'm kind of in that. What do I want to do and what feels good? Because that's always it, right? Sort of navigating life after football or life after your drug of choice or whatever the heck it is. And it's like balancing that out. And I've been kind of using this stop while I'm ahead mentality lately too, because I'm making this I haven't been doing much of anything. And I think on some level it was a good thing because it was probably like 7 years of Ironman overdoing it. And my body was like, all right, let's just step back, kind of, build this thing over right now. And I'm trying to remember that because I don't want to just go right back into the same trap, And I think a lot of us have this, like I've always said, it's most likely your race isn't today. There's no reason to get that intense about what you're doing today. And I think there's a good chance to sort of practice relaxation and chilling and going into the workout and finding like a joy in it versus finding a stress in it. And I think that's I always like to use those metaphors back and forth between race day and training day. And, it's not like training day shouldn't be something you take, go after, but it definitely doesn't have the same level of intensity that a race does. And you can mix that in occasionally, but you can't live your life in a race.
You know what you should take seriously?
What?
Your perspective. Like, and I think that's like,
me?
no, not you personally.
Oh, okay.
I mean, yeah, I mean, we could talk about that. That's a different topic, a different day. Is like, that is the part that people should take seriously, is like trying to really keep in line your boundaries and your perspective with where you are and what you're trying to accomplish within the sport. Because I think to an extent, like, I think we do this as humans, that we take something very small and minute, like a 30-minute run, and we make it something so much larger than it really is, because in the moment it feels like
try to
exactly. And because in the moment it feels like, well, if I make it out of this like really hugely important thing that I've got to get in today, if I don't, I'm going to like, coach, I'm sorry, man, I couldn't get my 30-minute run today. Like my kids were sick. I'm like, dude, first of all, why are you apologizing? Like, this is a 30-minute run. This is insignificant in the scheme of things. As long as it is insignificant in the scheme of things, like considering what you're doing. And if you had have ran, I've probably been like, you're an idiot. Why did you run? You should have taken the day off. But what we do is we give so much power to these. And this is, again, like, this is such a problem of society, as we become such a short-term success, overnight, daily. Everything is fantastic. Everything that we do has to be a poem or a meme or some wonderful like image script that like everything, like today that I ran this 30-minute run and it was, and you'd go on this like, 15-line tangent. I'm like, first of all, I think what it does, it makes us feel like we're in control on a very, very, very small part of what we do. But the reality is that's so much easier than keeping this huge perspective of where triathlon fits in your life and taking days off when you need to, and understanding that, yes, going to my kid's soccer game is more important than getting in this long ride, or I shouldn't feel bad at all for cutting my ride short because your son or daughter or your spouse wanted to go do it with you. Oh, no, you don't need to notate, hey, coach, this run was actually with my spouse today. So no, I don't need to know that. I need to know that you just went and ran. Like, I could really care less what one run looks like. I care more that you're having fun, that you're living your life, that you're finding ways to, again, integrate your training into what you do, whether it's taking your kids on stroller runs, whether it's riding the bike with your kids. But I have a lot of athletes who do their long runs with their kid riding their bike next to them. Like, those things are why we do this. It's to set an example. It's to be like, that's one of the things that I get excited about thinking of in the next 3 to 4 years when Hayden starts to ride his bike, a bigger bike. Like, then we can go on the Riverwalk and I can do long runs and he could ride next to me. Like, I'm not going to give a crap about what pace it is. It's because we're able to do something together, right? And that's like, I think a piece that we just that we so lose sight of. And I think it's been even magnified and compounded this year because we've been asked and required in a lot of ways to do everything by ourselves, right? And it's already a lonely and isolating sport as it is, but now we're basically taking every opportunity to connect and to be with other people and to feel energized by other people, that we just keep going further and further and further into ourself, into our own fears, into our own expectations. And then we become even resistant to sharing them, in our thoughts and like what we expect and how we're doing with life, and how, frankly, just how freaking hard life is sometimes, that we just internalize everything. And then what happens is, as you know, with anything, like if you internalize things for too long, then you end up exploding, right? And it comes up very, very, very bad thing. And people do that with training. They burn themselves out, and it doesn't become a day off. It becomes months off because they've been burying this expectation and this lack of desire into, I've got to do this because it's the only thing that I know, and I've got to do something to make it feel better. And if I don't, then I'm losing control of everything. And maybe I'm covering up something, but I got to keep doing it because this is what I do. And I'm a triathlete, and oh my God, I want to quit. And then now you have no direction and you're totally lost. And it is a very, very hard thing to come back from for athletes because we wrap ourselves so much up into that we are in. And this is why I try my hardest to explain to every athlete that we work with. It was even on the newer shirt we did for athletes. It was, I'm a C26 athlete, not triathlete, but athlete. Because as an athlete, you can do whatever you want. You can be a runner, you can be a cyclist, you can be a swimmer, you can do gravel rides, you can do tic-tac-toe, you can do whatever it is you want to do. You can step away and you can do it and still feel like you're a part of an awesome community, but you are at your heart an athlete, and athletes can be versatile. They can compete and do whatever it is they want to do, however they want to do it, and it's not putting yourself in a box, because once you put yourself in a box, you feel restrained and restricted to only adhering to what is in that box. And I think there is a certain freedom, not just like the name of over an athlete, but like I think there's a freedom in feeling like you're a versatile individual that can do a lot of different things while still keeping that perspective of happiness. And like we said at the beginning of the podcast, like be happy and healthy, no matter what. Like the method that you need to do or participate in to be happy and healthy is, you should take it. It doesn't matter what it is. If you need to change from triathlon and just go run or just go ride or just go swim, because that's what you need to make you happy and healthy, then you should stop thinking about it altogether and just go do that. Because you're at least, even if it won't make you ultimately the happiest and healthiest you've ever been, you'll at least be on the right track of putting the number one thing, or the thing that's the most important in life, in front, which is you and your overall emotional and mental health, and putting, your identity or the race you signed up for on the, just put it on the back burner.
Now I'm going to turn this on you a second, because I think your training is going pretty well and you're in a really good spot with that. Would it be fair to say that you're kind of embracing the unknown? Or, I think that's another way to say, like, really in the moment. And
what do you mean?
Well, like, let me give you an example of what happened to me recently. When I signed up for Ironman Chattanooga for next year, what is that, 11 months from now?
Mm-hmm. Sure.
The first thing that popped in my mind?
What?
A time. Okay.
Doesn't surprise me.
Well, but I don't think that's uncommon. You know what I mean? I think a lot of people are like, okay, I just signed up for this. Now, what am I going to go for? And I just think it's really interesting because, like, if you've been doing a lot, you're really consistent right now and feeling good about it. But I think you're just sort of like, okay, if I have a 2-hour ride today and I nail it and I get off the bike and I feel good, it's sort of like, what can that mean? It doesn't have to be like, you don't get off and go, well, that ride just translated into a 6-hour ride at blank, blank, blank. You're just kind of like, wait a minute, that's maybe some of the best 2-hour ride feel I've had in a long time, or whatever, and it's like, what does that mean? It's sort of like, a lot of times, like, honestly, people like these skateboarders or stuff, they're like, what are they called? The bike delivery,
no idea what bike delivery people are called.
Yeah, but you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
But a lot of times I feel like they're probably in unbelievable shape, right? Because they're just flowing, man. Like the skateboarders, sometimes they turn,
bike couriers?
Couriers, yeah. But they're just riding their bike all the time. And they're just, taking what comes and, going after it a little bit here and there when they have to and whatever, and get off the bike. They just keep riding. And these other people just skateboarding. They just keep skating. And they're just really building themselves up into, and I've been thinking about, I've been looking at your workouts, and I'm like, that guy's, he's doing it like a skateboarder. He's just kind of loving it right now.
Like a skateboarder.
You know what I mean? No.
California Games.
Like, because you keep building those types of days on top of those types of days, and they're all going in the right direction towards the goal you may have set for next year. And without this idea of really sort of trying to crystallize what it's going to turn into, it's like, man, if you just keep going and sort of getting more and more in love with that process, what I'm getting at is you might be selling yourself short by setting that number.
Well, the thing is, I don't have a number, and I think that's why it's.
But you probably don't.
I don't. But I think we've talked about this like plenty of times, or at least I have. Like, I think that's the fun and amazing part of endurance sports, is that when you don't attach yourself to some random ass number you pulled out of thin air, then you leave millions of unbelievable possibilities out there on the table that you legit don't even know. Like, I don't understand the obsession with already knowing, right? It's like, I think we've even used this like, oh, well, okay, so you have this expectation, like, would you rather know or not know how you're going to do in 9 months or 10 months for an Ironman race? What would that do to your training? We briefly mentioned it on like, maybe 2 weeks ago when we were talking about living for forever. Like, would you really want to live for forever? Because then you're like, I'll do it whenever. Things become less urgent. Things become less purposeful. You're not really involved in things. You don't love things as much because I'll just be around for forever. That's, I got nothing to do. Time is on me. And with training, it's like, and I've been in a really, really good place, and I'd be lying if I didn't say I had. I don't have expectations. I do have a drive that I feel like is positive in that, like, you see me, like, because you're in here, we're in here together 5 days a week, and you see me a lot of times I'm getting off the bike or I'm on there, I'm getting done, and And like, you never see me immediately get off and get on my phone or get on my laptop. I'm like, let's analyze how this one compares to last Thursday at, 2:00. I just do it. Then I get off and then I just kind of move on with my business, and then I look back in it later on in the week and then see how the week did or the week went. I guess the best analogy I can give to people who overanalyze their training every single day is, we use cooking a lot as an example. It's like you cook one meal one day, you go through like 25 steps, and then, a week later you go through the same thing. And what you do is you analyze every step along the way instead of the meal that it creates, because that's what we're doing when we train. Like, we're trying to create this masterpiece meal. We're making a list of, we're making a list. We're going to the grocery. We're shopping for the best ingredients. We're trying to make sure we build our, we get all the great ingredients for the cake. We put them in the right way. We, have the same amount that we need. We bake at the same temp or a different temp or for at least how long. And then we have a certain size of cake. Then we have our icing. Like, you don't go back and like, all right, step 4 says, 4.3 teaspoons of, molasses. And you're like, all right, let me compare how I did that last time. No, you just like keep doing it, because all that matters is the end result, the cake that you made. And I think one of the great parts, and I think some of it has to do with the fact that have been so far removed from training for triathlon, in that, which I had kind of a wake up call yesterday, as I'm supposed to race in like 31 days. So now I'm a little bit nervous and excited about it, because it kind of snuck up on me. I think that's been part of it. I haven't raced for over 2 years. I haven't done a single triathlon in 27 months. And so I kind of I've distanced myself from like the details of my own training and like what I need to do. And then, but the closer I get, the more of those like, all right, well then now I have to start. I think the more you dial things in, the more like these little, the devils on your shoulder pop in. They're like, oh, well, I wonder if you can do that in 28 minutes or 29 minutes, or how many times can you do this? Or, I wonder, because and I think the good part / could be problematic in the next few weeks if I start to have expectations is this is on the exact same course that I did another race in my last year that I raced, and so I have this like, oh, well, last time I did this race, it was a 4:36. I wonder where I'm going to be this time.
But do you think that I was going to ask, like, do you feel comfortable or confident that you can do that? Well, I don't mean to put you on the spot, but I just meant like what I'm getting at is like, instead of me setting like what I think I want to do, like, could I be like training and going, all right, I know how I understand how to do this part or the lower level of that, and then just train to that, and then just really see what happens, or without setting a high end goal, but like being like, all right, I'm comfortable. I feel strong that I'm sort of in the same place, or that I know my confident level is this. So like, it's sort of like racing. I've talked about it before, but many times where I've had, and I think that, I think Sean talked about this the other day in the ultra thing, the presentation he gave, but setting A, B, and C goals was interesting, because I think I've sort of done that. Like, okay, what do you know that you're pretty comfortable that you can hit? That might be your B goal versus your A goal. And then once that, because that usually, like for me, goes out of the water literally when I get out of the water. I'm like, oh, well, there goes my A goal. And then it's either
slide
like
it down to B.
Either you can go like rip it up and try and still get it and ruin the whole race, or like take your chances on that, or you can settle in. So, but my thought is like, why? It's sort of like my theory on easing into it was, why don't you settle in and go for that B goal, and then if it's there, go for the A goal instead of going for the A goal out of the gate.
Yeah, no, I'm yeah, it's a great question, because I have a lot, like, I didn't start training back again until August 3rd. Like, I didn't get back on a bike until August 3rd. Mm-hmm. And I kind of had this thought of, and it's why endurance sports is so complicated. And I'm sharing this not as in like, this is me and my training and, this is how you should do things, but as in like, this is what we all go through to an extent. And I got back into training August 3rd, knowing that there was a race in November, and which was what, September, October, November, like just 3.5 months away. And it's like, what, but I kind of like, what kind of shape can I get in 3.5 months? Mm-hmm. So like I went into it with like this freedom of like, you'll just be who you are when you show up. But there's a freedom in that, right? I'm not like, oh, well, you've raced this last year. You have all these benchmarks to know that you have to, to meet, or if you don't meet them, then what's going on? Because right now everything just goes right because I don't have anything to compare it to except for, my 38-year-old self. Now I'm 40, moved up to an age group. How's my body going to withstand, the racing, now that I'm this, freaking old geezer, like how are things going to go? So I had this like freedom, but then I also went back to like, when you and I did 100 Days to Louisville. And I was surprised and shocked at how I was able to get back in shape in a very short period of time. The last few weeks, I have found myself being like, okay, maybe I've gotten back in a little bit better shape than I kind of thought I would, which has kind of increased, not my expectations, because I don't have any yet, but it has increased like my level of focus. Like, man, like this does feel good. What I've been happiest with since I started training again was my consistency. And my no frills, no brouhaha, just commitment to just loving it and doing it. Like nothing else, but just doing it and getting it done. And it doesn't matter. I'm not overanalyzing things. I'm just doing it and putting in the work, and I'll be where I end up. But at the same time, like now that I'm getting closer and now you start, and I think it's natural for everyone, you start to like visualize, right? What's it going to be like? Who's going to be there? And I've been on this course before, and I think I've been open about this on other podcasts before, is that, like I do have this, kind of not chip on my shoulder, but this, whatever you want to call it, maybe it is a chip or a thought that's that like, it bugs me that both my fastest 70.3 and Ironman times are still back from before I got sober. And so I have that like burn inside of me that's like, but I also have this belief that I can be faster than I was back then, or put out a better time. Like I truly believe that. Whether it's true or not, I don't know. We'll have to find out if I keep doing it, but I won't find it out if I just keep, backing off and not doing things. And this race date is 2 days after. It's supposed to be November 22nd. It's on a course I've done before where I was like 3 minutes off my PR when you were there when I did it 2 years ago, and it happens 2 days after I have my like 7-year anniversary of like sobriety. So I have like this like how great I had this like internal drive of like, which in my opinion is the right kind of drive. Like it's not like Sean was talking about in his presentation or trail camp. He talks about doing hard things and coming at them from a place of love, and that is kind of the feeling that I've had in terms of, well, how incredible would it be for me to go out there, not to just beat this time, but to like use this newfound love that I have and have it happen on this day, so close to a 48-hour day, within the hardest days of my entire life. Right? When I got sober, like how special would that be? And I don't visualize that as a expectation. I visualize that and feel that as a huge tool in my toolbox, because when things get hard, no matter what happens on the day, no matter if I do a 520 or a 450, or, if I pull a magic rabbit out of the hat and they're able to go, a fastest I've ever gone, like who knows? What I do know is that I'll be able to draw from that feeling of how lucky I am. Because I get this feeling every year around this time of year when it's fall and the trees are and the leaves are changing, the trees change, and the weather cools, and I get very, very sentimental because this period of the year always reminds me of the period of time that was the hardest in my life. Like that was the most excruciating. I was in the worst place I'd ever been in my entire life. So I always get this like very emotional, probably sensitive, nostalgic feeling of like rewinding and just kind of going back and just feeling insanely and incredibly grateful that I am where I am and that I've been able to accomplish what I've been able to accomplish, and I'm still here, 7 years later, still sober, and all the amazing things that I have. And so I know that I'll be able to draw from that on race day. Like when things are going bad, I'll be able to go towards, as like Steve Magnus even mentioned on one of our I think he was our very first guest, in the first year we did this, was like when you race from a place of gratitude, you usually perform significantly better than you do just for like a selfish, like, I just want to do this. And so I've pictured myself going back and like, oh, well, like, I have this new love and I have this, this thing I can draw back on that is a good positive thing that literally has nothing to do with triathlon. Just a gratefulness to be there. And that hasn't changed because I have no idea what I can do, because racing is just like training. You wake up and you're like, hey, I got it today or I don't got it today. But what I do know is that I feel like I'm in a very, very, very positive mental space to be able to execute and have fun and have a really good day. Because I've thought about it, like of just going, I've got a Powerman on my bike, but I've also considered just going on feel and just racing it, because it is my first race back and I want to love it. And I know it's going to be different with COVID and the changes, but I'm frankly not even going to care. I just want to love it and and kind of culminate and be proud of what I've done and how consistent I've been the last few weeks and months. And whatever time does happen, I'm not going to be like, oh, well, I did things the wrong way, because that's what a lot of people do, is they have this expectation that has no basis, no data, they just pull it out of thin air. Then they go, oh, well, I just didn't do good enough. Well, you probably just overshot your expectation. And that's why, and so you don't have to kind of like go back to the drawing board. So I'm optimistic, not about the result. I'm optimistic about where I am emotionally and mentally in the process, to where like, I'm not looking at competition. I'm not looking at who's going to be there. I'm not looking at what were the fastest times last year in my age group. I'm not looking at anything like that, like I have done in years past. It's just like, what do I got to do today? All right, I got to run and I got to ride and I got to do that. And if I do that and I feel good, then it is good. And then the more good days, like we talked about, I think on Monday, like the more good days I have, then maybe I have a great day. If I don't, I get back up, I do it. But the important piece is that I'm happier, I'm healthier, I feel good about what I'm doing. And then the race day can just be what it is, and then to have the opportunity to do that. So I don't know if that answers your question or not, but that's kind of where I am.
No, it does. I think it does. And I mean, I was there, and you definitely emptied your tank that day, because we've seen the pictures, and I was there and I was like, whoa, dude.
Yeah, I was destroyed.
But there's a very strong possibility that your tank may be fuller this year in general. So like if you emotionally, physically, all the things. And what I got to thinking about was like, okay, yeah, maybe you go out and you don't ride with power, but you ride just as strong or close to it. And you get off that bike with a fuller tank, and you might be able to flip that switch of running for gratitude and love, and it might just be there. You know what I mean? You just never know. And instead of like, running because you're going to prove something to Mr. Burns on The Simpsons or something, your nemesis, and show them, we're going to show everybody what's up here today. But like, as you cruise with a stronger chassis, maybe a better mindset, or whatever the case may be, it just may happen, but may not. But I
don't care.
You don't care.
Yeah,
and
that's
my favorite. I think my favorite race was my favorite Ironman. Truly, the feeling of it was probably the one we did in 2016 up at Wisconsin. And I just say that because I think I kind of controlled my run the first loop a little bit, but I knew my A goal was shot. And it may have been in there somewhere, but I kind of like backed it down and said, okay, let me readjust here and just see what happens, when I got 6 miles left, but not kill myself. And I really enjoyed that race, and I had a pretty good race. I mean, it wasn't like, it was probably one of my better times at Wisconsin. And there's something to be said for, I remember getting into the sport, and it was the dumbest thing ever. It was like, well, how can that person be smiling right now on the run? It's like, why are they so happy? And I think that that's what you were just talking about, sort of the finding this love and gratitude place, more than just, trying to keep your fuel from burning out and, like running out of gas completely, and just pouring it on and overheating your engine and the whole 9 yards. And like I always say, man, it's like, there's a real fine line between pouring it on and just kind of cruising. And the difference usually isn't a whole lot, but you would, rather than, completely falling apart at mile 20 on that race course, it might be nice to have another gear left in some way, well, it always is, but, the odds of, you might, it's like the one example when I did Louisville one year, I told you this story, but that second loop, I was yo-yoing the whole time with a walk-run girl. Mm-hmm. And that was like, I was just digging and I would not stop, and I kept dragging my feet and just suffering, and she would walk, and I'd run by her, and then she would take her little or run segment and run by me, and we just kept looping, hopping each other the whole race. And I'm sure that she got done and was like, hey, that was fun. And I just hated life, but we both basically ran that second loop in the same exact time.
Like, I think the biggest thing with when you race and that's the thing is, like, if you want to race with gratitude and race with some kind of happiness or smile your way through the pain, which a lot of people can do, just like everything else in life, like, you have to practice it. Like, that has to be part of your training. Like, that has to be a part of your mentality. Like, you never see, and you see this at the start line of every big race, athletes that are literally terrified. Not terrified of the day that it's dangerous, they're not going to be able to complete it. Terrified of not meeting their expectation. They're so tense and they have so much built up, like, anxiety and fear and stress over meeting this specific goal that they are petrified. And that obviously is going to hamper, like, their ability to, like, the person you should be most afraid of isn't the person with, like, the earphones in, not talking to anybody. I'm Johnny Try Serious, and I got my, Metallica in, and I'm just not talking to anybody. I got my flat bill, and I'm in the zone, baby. Like, you got nothing on me. And that's not the person you'd be scared of. You should be scared of the person who's acting like they've been there 5 million times, who's laughing it up, who's talking to their friends because they are relaxed and as chill as, and as cool as on the side of the pillow. And that is the person you should fear, because they're relaxed and they're ready to have fun, because when you're doing that, nothing else matters. And you can smile your way through that pain because you're going to be able to conquer everything, because you're so grateful and you're so happy to be there. But in order to do that, you have to do that in training. You have to enjoy and love what you do. You can't be so, like, paralyzed by fear and take everything so seriously, because you've never seen an athlete who is so rigid and so inflexible and so serious and intense about everything that we do in triathlon. Show up on race day and they're like, I've done all this serious work, therefore today, it's all about the fun, baby, and I'm just going to relax. No, they are even more serious and more rigid and more intense, because it is the culmination of all their seriousness. And then they usually mentally and emotionally implode because something doesn't go right, and now everything has caused, a very difficult day to happen. You've got to practice that enjoyment and that happiness and that perspective in training, so when race day comes, you can race free. You can not care. But not caring is not a bad thing. It's about caring about the right things, right? And caring about the right things is being happy and being grateful for the opportunity, because that's the only way you can smile yourself through the pain, or just dig that extra level to get to that pain. Like, you just shouldn't care about those things. You should just care about the effort that you put in, because we're always so terrified, because you have social media and you have athletes, you have the Ironman tracker. It's like, who's going to see this? Who's going to see that? Who's going to see my time? Who's going to see this? And you're like, first of all, the only person you should care about is you. And did you put the effort down, and do you feel good about what you did? And I talked about it a million times. I'm sure people don't want to hear about it, but that's my biggest regret from the last year that I raced, was that, or not the regret, but when I would go back and analyze the 370.3s I did in 2018, was that the race, not regret, the race I was the most proud of was the one where I placed the farthest down in my age group, which was Texas. I was happiest with that race because I felt like I truly emptied the tank and just blew it. You saw him, like we just mentioned, like I was done. I was toast. And then I did Chattanooga just over a month later, and I ended up being on the podium in my age group, but I was disappointed because I didn't feel like I gave it everything that I had that day. And then Ohio, I felt like the same thing. Like, all my times were around the same. And again, I placed like 7th in my age group. So my two best, quote unquote, what people would say, your two best results that year they were my least favorite, because all that mattered to me, or all that matters to me when I race, is that I go past that extra line of just rein it in. It's still okay. It's still a pretty good time. But that I push myself to that level of being uncomfortable, just figuring out exactly what I had that day, because you're never going to have the other chance. And there's something I remember specifically about that day in Texas it's probably one of the most proud moments that I have in this sport. I don't even know if I've shared this before. Was I was running I was running by the second loop and I knew I was having a good day. Like I knew I was having like probably one of the strongest days I've ever had in the sport. And I expected to be pretty high up in my age group. And I remember it was 3 loops, and we were going the second loop, and I asked, like, I think you were there, like maybe it was even you, and I ran past the group, and even though I wish I shouldn't have, I said, where am I?
Yeah.
And somebody was like, I think you're 13th. And usually, and I initially was like devastated. I was like, I've read that. I was like, what do you mean I'm 13th? Like I'm running like 6:55s. What do you mean I'm 13th right now? And for a minute, I was like, the hell? I was like, what? I was like, you know what? Just cruise it in the rest of the way. There's no shot. But then like 2 seconds later, my next thought was, you've got to burn it. Like that's the thing that I think we underestimate so many times, or we don't appreciate enough when we race, is that like you only get one chance to have that day. And I was having that day. And regardless of who else showed up that day, this was a good day for me. And if I wouldn't have shown the amount of respect I needed to, or appreciated the moment or the opportunity, if I hadn't have just emptied the tank and have been like, 12th, there's no way I'm going to catch up to third or fourth or fifth in the next, whatever it was, like 3.8 miles. I was like, there's no way. But it was, I immediately switched that to, even though I was already in an immense amount of pain, I was like, I have to appreciate the opportunity and have to do this for me today because it's what's right. And I kept going, and obviously I went as hard as I could go, and I put and then looking back on it, I was like, the hell these guys come from? Like showing up with it was like 4:34 was good enough for like 14th in my age group for that day. But I was still overjoyed with the performance that I had. And I'd be lying if I said, oh, well, every race, no matter what someone says, that's not going to affect me, because that's a lie. Like if because I had somebody say in Chattanooga when I was finishing the first loop, Jonathan Minton, I didn't even ask for it, which I was kind of like, my God, I can't believe he just said this. He was like, you're in 4th. And I was like, oh my God. Because I was...
Oh, yeah. I was just going to say that, man.
I didn't want to hear it. I didn't know where I was. I didn't care. And then he was like, oh, you're in 4th. And my next thought was, oh shit. Like now I'm on this line of like, I could be on the podium. I can do this. Like, how do I want to manage like the next half? Yeah. It immediately changed what I did. Not necessarily for the bad, but it did change the way that I approached the next loop, for the good or for bad or whatever. It changed it. And I think we do that when we look at our watch. We do that when we hear from other people. It's like how quickly we can change who we are and what we're doing based on what we hear, even though it's not currently anything that's remotely important to our own like present reality. But we just immediately switch. I was furious. I was like, oh my God, why'd you just tell me that?
Well, yeah, I was just going to say this, like, as you're telling that story, I was thinking, because it's happened to me too, where I've had last year at Chattanooga, I thought I was having a really good race, and I'm like, I think I'm doing pretty good. I'm probably up there. And every time I ran past everybody, I was waiting for somebody to say, hey, you're in 8th or whatever, or 6th. And nobody said anything. So that's the thing. I think if you got to ask, you probably, you know what I mean? Like, I think people that are watching, and if you're watching somebody that like is in the verge of or has potential to get on the podium or something like that, they're going to tell you. But if you're in like 15th, they're probably not going to mention it, So
that's so true.
But
hey, you're doing great, man. You're in 23rd.
Yeah,
you're like,
23rd.
Sweet.
I think you could pull it up. But the other thing is with the way, the rolling starts and everything. Like you asked me that a couple times. Yeah, I think at Ohio you asked too, and you were right on the number that time too. Or somewhere, and
I was yo-yoing. I was going between because
but I couldn't tell. Like I'd be like, I don't know, dude. I'm gonna say you're 3 minutes back, but then the next guy comes through and he's ahead of you, like because there's just too many variables. Yeah. But I was just there's somewhere in there you were saying something about and back to the kind of have fun with like laughing at the beginning of the start of the race, and instead of being all serious and intense and Metallica and the whole 9 yards is like I think it's a really good goal. And I remember having this goal, my first Ironman race was like, I'm going to get in that water. Because I look forward to that mass start for whole year. And I was just like, I'm going to go try and enjoy this, even though it's going to be mayhem. And I remember like about 5 minutes in the race saying to myself, I was getting the crap beat out of me. But I remember looking up at the, people on the helix and all the people around watching, people everywhere. And, I remember saying, this is awesome. This is awesome. So if you could do that 5 minutes into whatever race you're in, instead of oh man, this isn't my day, or like, oh, I just got punched in the mouth, or got something run over, or whatever. Just this idea of like, man, it's so cool to be in this environment and be able to do this. This is awesome, man. And that, I think it just sets you up for the day.
I had the exact same feeling when you and I did Louisville together the last year. It was the real Louisville, which was in August, and it was a hot, insane inferno. And it was, I'd only been sober for like 7 or 8 months, and just got back into training and just kind of showed up and was just like freaking just flat, frankly, just happy to freaking be alive and be there. And I remember getting in the water, and I was like maybe 2 minutes in, and which is, I probably wouldn't recommend doing this, but I had my mouth open smiling in the Ohio, which is probably, like I probably have some like lifelong, medical condition because I did that.
Yeah.
But I remember just smiling, thinking like, I can't believe I'm here. Like, I was just so happy and so grateful to be there. I even had on the bike, like the first 20 miles, like people be smashing it up these hills. And I'm like, this is just so great. And like, which is kind of weird to think of that. I was so appreciative, but I mentally and emotionally set this positive tone that you can't shake, that is unshakable. That is like, no matter what happens, you're like, I'm here. Like, it could have been a flat tire, it could have been whatever. But if you have this like sense of gratitude and happiness to be there, then those kind of small, insignificant obstacles that you would make significant otherwise, had you be like so tense and it's like, oh my God, I just got kicked in the goggles. My day's over. Like, I just lost 45 minutes. And like you see people like that get out of the swim, and they stop and they're like, I couldn't get my wetsuit off as quickly as I wanted. And some guy kicked me in the goggles, and they talk to their spouse for like 5 minutes. I'm like, dude, like, move along, get on your way. Like, stop. Let's not sit here and marinate on some very small thing that happened. Just kind of don't get caught up in the minutia. Like, you just go out and do your thing. And if you have this positive attitude about it, then you can be kind of undeterred from the ultimate goal, which is to finish and be in this positive place. And I think you'd be surprised how far and how fast that kind of mentality can take you.
All right.
Just like the end of this podcast.
Just like the end of this podcast. Hey, if you're interested in coaching for next year, at least guidance and training plans and community and the online hub and everything, we got a new program out there called the C26 Club, and we're going to dial in your whole training year for your A race and all around your other races and things like that. Go to c26triathlon.com, pull on the coaches tab, and then there's a little drop down for the C26 Club. You can check out everything that's involved there. It's a really cool program. We're going to try and build a nice community around it. We got a lot of good interest in it already. A lot of people have signed up, and it's for $349 for the whole year. It's pretty sweet, and we're going to be getting a lot of stuff with that.
Planning your year is definitely the most difficult part for athletes, with things that change and not knowing when to race and how to race, and then how you should train them, especially in between races. It's not really the A race you need the most help with. It's all the races in between. And so we can do that. We can take care of your year for you. Let us remove that stress. Let us plan your year appropriately so you can have fun, you can be healthy, you can stay happy, and frankly, have an awesome result. So go to the coaching tab, check that out. Everything else, you can go to c26triathlon.com for all things camps, coaching, and community. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, or anything of the like, you can contact Mike, crushingiron@gmail.com. If you have any specific questions for me, you can reach me at c26coach@gmail.com.
All right, my man, I will catch you later.